Marissa Lowell had spent 8 years convincing herself that distance could dilute pain, that miles and silence could wash away the fractures a family inflicted. But standing once again at the edge of Blackridge Bay, staring at the rugged cliffside mansion where she grew up, she felt every old wound pulse back to life. The wind carried the familiar scent of seaweed and cold brine, but beneath it she sensed something darker, like the air itself was bracing for impact. Her return had not been planned. It wasn't nostalgia pulling her back, but a shaky voicemail from her mother that replayed in her head with every step. "Marissa, come home. Please. Your uncle is doing something wrong. And you're the only one who can stop him." Her mother had never asked for help before. Elaine Lowell was the type of woman who treated vulnerability as a stain, not an emotion. For her to sound frightened meant the ground truly was shifting beneath the Lowell name. Marissa tightened her grip on the duffel bag slung over her shoulder, feeling the old anger she thought she'd buried rise inside her. She had left this house because of betrayal, because of secrets whispered behind doors and decisions made without her. But she never imagined Rowan, the uncle she once idolized, would be the source of the voicemail that dragged her back across the country. The waves crashed violently against the rocks below, as if warning her to leave before it was too late. Still, Marissa walked toward the heavy wooden doors, fully unaware that she wasn't returning to uncover the past. She was returning to be hunted by it. The interior of the Lowell estate felt like a mausoleum dressed in luxury. Chandeliers glittered, marble floors gleamed, and portraits of stern ancestors observed Marissa with acrylic suspicion. Her footsteps echoed too loudly, reminding her how long she'd been gone. She found her mother standing near the grand staircase, fingers wrapped so tightly around a ceramic mug that Marissa feared it would shatter. Elaine's usually sharp expression was softened by exhaustion. Her eyes rimmed red as though she hadn't slept in days. "You came faster than I expected," Elaine said quietly. Marissa shrugged off her coat, her gaze steady. "You sounded scared." Elaine's lips trembled before she could steady them. "Because I am." Those 3 words struck Marissa harder than any accusation ever could. Before she could press further, footsteps clicked against the hallway floor, measured, confident, too familiar. Rowan Lowell stepped forward wearing a tailored charcoal suit and a smile that never touched his eyes. "Look who decided to grace us with her presence," he said, arms spread as if welcoming a guest rather than confronting the niece he hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade. Marissa stiffened. "Cut the theatrics, Rowan. What did you do?" His smile widened, predatory and controlled. "Me. I'm protecting the family. Something you stopped doing the moment you ran away." Elaine flinched at his tone. Marissa didn't. She matched his stare with icy precision. "Mom said you're trying to access my inheritance. That you claim I signed documents." Rowan clucked his tongue, the gesture dripping with false pity. "Claim? No, Marissa. I don't claim anything. I have the documents." He tapped the breast pocket of his suit. "Signatures and all." And for the first time since arriving, Marissa felt fear coil inside her. Rowan led them into the study, a room Marissa had avoided her entire childhood because it smelled of cigar smoke and quiet manipulation. The fire crackled even though the afternoon wasn't cold, filling the room with a glow that felt more sinister than warm. Rowan moved behind the desk with a sense of ownership that made Marissa's stomach tighten. He opened a leather-bound folder and slid out several pages, arranging them neatly before her. "Here they are," he said, almost smug. "Documents you signed 13 years ago, relinquishing your share of the Lowell Trust." Marissa didn't sit. "That's impossible. I never signed anything." Elaine stepped closer, her voice shaking. "I told him that. I told him you would never do such a thing." Rowan lifted one sheet, turning it toward Marissa. "Look, your signature. Right here." Her breath stalled. The handwriting resembled hers, uncannily. The slanted L in Lowell, the looping S in Marissa. It looked perfect. Too perfect. "This is forged," she whispered. Rowan's smile sharpened. "Prove it." Marissa felt heat rising up her neck. "Why would I give up my inheritance? I moved to Boston to study journalism, not to erase myself from this family. Rowan leaned back in the chair, folding his hands over his stomach. People change. You were 18. Reckless. Angry. You wanted nothing to do with us after your father died. The mention of her father felt like a punch. Don't twist his death to justify whatever scam you're running, she snapped. Rowan's eyes glittered with something colder than greed, confidence. Everything is legal, Marissa. And unless you can provide evidence otherwise, the trust becomes mine in 72 hours. Her pulse roared in her ears. 72 hours. 3 days to uncover a truth Rowan had buried years ago. 3 days before she lost everything her father intended her to have. Marissa turned away from the desk, needing space to breathe, but the room felt too small, pressing in on her with memories she'd tried to bury. She heard Rowan stand behind her, his tone deceptively soft. You always underestimated me, Marissa. Even as a child. She didn't turn around. No, I trusted you. That was my mistake. He chuckled. Trust is a currency most people spend too freely. Elaine stepped between them, her courage trembling but present. Rowan, this is madness. Marcus would never approve of this. Marcus Lowell, Marissa's father. His name cracked the air like lightning. Rowan's expression twisted. Marcus promised me that I would guide the family's future. He knew Marissa wasn't ready for responsibility. Marissa spun back toward him. I was a child, Rowan. A child whose father had just died. For a moment, just a sliver of time, Rowan's gaze flickered with something, envy? Pain. But it vanished as quickly as it came. Grief does not excuse incompetence, he said coldly. Marissa stepped closer. And forging documents does. Rowan didn't blink. Prove it, he repeated. Until then, the law is on my side. Marissa felt her mother touch her arm gently, grounding her. We'll fight this, Elaine whispered. We'll find a way. Rowan's voice sliced through the moment. I wouldn't waste your time. The trust's transition begins tomorrow morning. And Marissa, he paused, savoring the tension. If you stay in this house, don't trust anyone. Not even your mother. Marissa stiffened at the insinuation, but she refused to give him the satisfaction of reacting. She lifted her chin. I'll uncover everything, Rowan. Every lie. Every secret. Count on it. Rowan smiled thinly. I'm counting on the opposite. As Marissa and Elaine left the study, the hallway felt colder, the walls somehow narrower. Elaine hurried her toward the kitchen, where the only warmth in the house seemed to exist. The moment the door closed behind them, Elaine exhaled shakily. Marissa, there's more. Marissa froze. More what? Elaine wrung her hands, her composure unraveling. Rowan has allies. People inside the estate. People who have been helping him gather documents, signatures, financial records. I don't know who they are. I don't know who to trust anymore. Marissa swallowed hard. Why didn't you call me sooner? Elaine looked away. Because Rowan said he would ruin you if I did. Marissa stared at her mother, the betrayal burning slow and deep. Mom, he's already trying to ruin me. Elaine's voice broke. I know. I'm sorry. Before Marissa could respond, a quiet sound interrupted them, a creak from the adjoining pantry door. Both women went still. Marissa moved toward the door cautiously and swung it open. No one was inside. But on the floor lay something small, metallic, and out of place. A recording device with a blinking red light. Her pulse spiked. Someone had been listening. Someone inside the house had been recording every word. Elaine covered her mouth. Marissa, who would? Marissa bent down, shutting off the device. Whoever is helping Rowan, she said quietly, is closer than we thought. She closed her hand around the recorder, her jaw tightening. Rowan thinks I'm walking into his trap blind. He has no idea what's coming. And with that, the first spark of revenge, sharp, calculated and dangerous, ignited in her chest. Marissa placed the recording device on the kitchen island, both she and her mother staring at it like it was a venomous creature. The small red light, that quiet, blinking witness, felt more threatening than Rowan's arrogance in the study. "He has someone inside this house," Marissa murmured. "Someone who moves quietly, someone who knows when to listen." Elaine wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking older than Marissa had ever seen. "Your uncle has always been persuasive. He knows how to make people feel indebted to him." Marissa's eyes narrowed. "Or afraid of him." A cold realization settled over her shoulders like a wet coat. If Rowan had allies, and if they were willing to plant devices, then anything she said, any plan she made, was already compromised. "We need to leave this room," Marissa whispered. "Anywhere except here." Elaine nodded shakily, but Marissa paused before stepping out. She grabbed a notepad from the counter and scribbled a single line, "Do not speak out loud." She slid the note to her mother. Elaine read it, eyes widening, then silently nodded. Together they walked toward the sunroom, where wide windows overlooked the turbulent ocean. Once inside, Marissa pulled out her phone and typed a message, showing it to Elaine. "Rowan forged my signature. That takes a professional. We need proof, real proof." Elaine typed back, "How?" "His team controls the estate." Marissa looked toward the darkened stairwell at the far end of the hall. "Then we don't stay in the estate. We find answers elsewhere." For the first time since she arrived, Marissa felt clarity. Rowan had built a fortress, but he had also made one fatal mistake. He underestimated how quickly she could dismantle it. They moved through the house with careful steps, communicating only through silent gestures and hurried notes. Every shadow felt suspicious, every creak an alarm. In the sunroom, Marissa paused near the tall windows as a storm cloud rolled across the horizon, darkening the waves. "We need a safe place to talk," she typed on her phone. Elaine's reply trembled across the screen. "Your old room. It hasn't been touched since you left." Marissa wasn't convinced. If Rowan had planted one device, there were probably more. He typed, "Check it with me. Don't assume anything is clean." They climbed the staircase together, each step slow and deliberate. When they reached Marissa's room, the sight of it struck her with unexpected emotion. It was frozen in time, a museum of who she used to be. Posters on the wall. A desk piled with old notebooks. A photograph of her and Rowan when she was 12. Both smiling, both innocent. The image now felt like evidence from a crime scene. Elaine began searching drawers, while Marissa moved directly to the air vent, a classic hiding spot. Her fingers brushed metal, then something softer. A foam pad covering, a second recording device. She removed it with a tight jaw. "2 devices," she typed on her phone, showing it to Elaine. "He's not spying. He's monitoring." Elaine's eyes filled with guilt. "I should have protected you." Marissa shook her head. "We don't have time for guilt. We need strategy." She paced the room, mind racing. Rowan had laid a perfect trap within the estate, but if she stepped outside of it, if she brought in someone he didn't expect, someone he couldn't control, then the balance of power would shift. The storm outside thundered, and Marissa felt a matching rumble inside her. The spark of a plan forming. Marissa retrieved her old laptop from a shelf, brushing dust off its surface. It powered on slower than she remembered, but soon the familiar desktop glow illuminated her determined expression. She opened a blank document and typed, "I need a forensic handwriting analyst. Someone discreet. Someone outside Rowan's reach." Elaine leaned over her shoulder, whispering through written notes on torn paper. "Do you know anyone? From your journalism days?" Marissa nodded. "One." His name was Derek Vance, an investigative researcher she had once collaborated with on a corruption exposé. Derek had a reputation for detecting forged documents the way a bloodhound detects scent. He had also warned her years ago that families were the most dangerous institutions to investigate. She typed a message to him, urgent. "Life or death. I need verification of forged signatures. Confidential. Can you meet?" Before she could hit send, the screen flickered, and a notification popped up. Unsecured network. Activity monitored. Her stomach dropped. Someone inside the house had access to her Wi-Fi connection. They were watching her keystrokes. She snapped the laptop shut. Elaine flinched. What happened? Marissa wrote. He's monitoring the network too. We can't use any device tied to the estate. Elaine covered her mouth in horror. How far does this go? Marissa shook her head slowly. Farther than we thought, she typed. The storm outside intensified, lightning casting sharp flashes across her room. With each flash, Marissa felt the same truth deepen. Rowan hadn't simply forged documents. He had built an entire surveillance web around her mother, the estate, and now her. He wanted complete control. And control was a mask worn by men with something catastrophic to hide. She picked up her coat. We're leaving this house now. Elaine hesitated only a moment before nodding. They crept downstairs, avoiding the creaky third step Marissa remembered from childhood. The house seemed to listen, breathing in every footfall, storing each sound as ammunition for Rowan. In the foyer they put on coats, working in silence. Just as Marissa reached for the front door, a voice echoed behind them. Going somewhere. Rowan leaned against the archway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Elaine stiffened. Marissa kept her hand on the door handle. Air, she typed on her phone, turning the screen toward him. We need air. Rowan smirked. You always were dramatic. His gaze dropped to the recorder in Marissa's hand, then lifted again with slow amusement. You found them. It saves me the trouble of retrieving them later. Elaine stepped forward, trembling. Rowan, why are you doing this? She's your niece. Rowan's jaw tightened, not with guilt but annoyance. Because Marcus trusted the wrong person. And because Marissa refuses to accept her limits. Marissa opened the door an inch. Rowan's voice sharpened. If you walk out now, I assume you're preparing for war. And if that's the case, don't expect mercy. Marissa held his stare, refusing to flinch. She typed slowly, deliberately. You overplayed your hand. And now I'm going to expose you. Rowan's smile vanished. For the first time, a crack in his confidence appeared. A flicker of real fear. Marissa pushed the door fully open, the storm wind slamming into the foyer. Tick-tock, Rowan, she typed. 72 hours. She and Elaine stepped outside without another word. The door thundered shut behind them, sealing the first real line drawn in a battle neither of them had chosen, but one Marissa intended to win. Rain battered their coats as they hurried toward Elaine's car, the driveway slick with wind-driven sheets of water. Marissa slid into the passenger seat, wiping moisture from her face. Elaine started the engine, her hands trembling against the ignition. Where are we going? She whispered, voice barely audible over the storm. Marissa wrote on her phone. Somewhere we can think. Somewhere Rowan doesn't control. She considered their options. Hotels in Blackridge Bay were limited, and many were owned or influenced by Rowan through shell companies. They needed neutrality, anonymity, and above all safety. She typed. The Harbor Line Motel. The old one near the docks. Rowan hates that place. Too public. Too unpredictable. Elaine nodded and backed down the driveway. As they reached the main road, Marissa caught sight of a figure at an upstairs window. Rowan watching them leave. His silhouette was rigid, angry, calculating. The sight only strengthened her resolve. Once they were on the open highway, Marissa pulled out her phone and typed a second message, this one addressed to Derek. Emergency. Cannot talk, cannot call. Meeting needed ASAP. Respond with single word yes or no. She shut the phone off immediately afterward, refusing to give Rowan's surveillance a chance to intercept. The car headlights cut through the storm as they approached the docks, the motel's flickering neon sign glowing through sheets of rain like a beacon for the lost. When they parked, Elaine sagged against the steering wheel, tears spilling. I should have seen this. I should have protected you when you were young. Marissa touched her mother's shoulder gently. We can't rewrite the past, she typed. But we can expose the truth now. The storm roared, but inside Marissa, something stronger had awakened, a sharpened purpose forged from betrayal. The Harbor Line motel smelled faintly of mildew and old salt, but to Marissa, it felt like sanctuary. The faded blue carpet, flickering lamp, and thin walls offered something the Lowell estate could not: privacy. She locked the door behind them twice, slid the chain into place, and pulled the curtains tight. Elaine sat on the edge of the bed, wiping rain from her sleeves, her expression haunted. Marissa powered on her phone briefly, just long enough to see a response from Derek. Yes. Relief washed through her. She immediately powered off the device again. "We'll meet him tomorrow," she wrote on a small motel notepad, keeping their communication analogs safe. Elaine nodded, though uncertainty shadowed her eyes. "Marissa, what if this gets worse before it gets better?" Marissa sat beside her, choosing her next words carefully. "It already has," she wrote. "But we aren't powerless." Elaine shook her head. "You don't understand how far Rowan's reach extends. He's been quietly consolidating influence for years. Business contacts, legal advisors, even friends on the city council. People owe him favors." Marissa's jaw tightened. "Then we'll gather proof that even his allies can't ignore." The storm pelted the window viciously, rattling the glass. Marissa stared at the droplets sliding down in chaotic patterns, thinking. She knew Rowan. She knew his pride, his hunger for control. Men like him didn't commit small betrayals. They built empires of deceit. "Tell me everything," she wrote. Elaine hesitated, as though weighing the cost of truth. Then she exhaled shakily. "Rowan wasn't always planning to steal your inheritance. This escalated after your father died. There were promises made. Promises Marcus never told you." Marissa felt something cold settle at the base of her spine. "What promises?" she wrote. Elaine's voice cracked. "Ones that could change how you see both of them." Elaine stood and paced the narrow motel room, wringing her hands, her breath unsteady. "Marcus trusted Rowan more than anyone," she began. "Not because he loved him more, but because Rowan saved his life once, years before you were born." Marissa frowned, scribbling. "Saved his life how?" Elaine swallowed. They were hiking in Glacier Ridge. Marcus slipped on black ice. Rowan caught him, barely, and held him until help arrived. After that, Marcus felt indebted to him. It shaped everything. Marissa processed the revelation slowly. "So Dad trusted him blindly." Elaine nodded. "Yes. And sometimes blindly meant dangerously." She continued, voice trembling. "When your father fell ill, he told Rowan things he never told me. Financial arrangements. Contingency plans. He asked Rowan to oversee the trust temporarily if anything happened to him. But that authority was supposed to end when you turned 25. Marissa stiffened. "I'm 26 now." Elaine nodded again, anguish in her eyes. "Exactly. Rowan's window of legal control is closing. That's why he forged documents. He's running out of time." Marissa felt heat rise in her chest. Anger, disbelief, grief all tangled together. "Why didn't Dad tell me?" she wrote, her hand trembling. Elaine sat beside her. "Marcus thought he was protecting you. You were so young when he died. He wanted you to grow without pressure." Marissa's throat tightened. "And instead he left me vulnerable." Elaine looked away. "He trusted the wrong person." Marissa closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself. Rowan's betrayal now had deeper roots, motives tied to old debts, old promises, and collapsing power. But something didn't fit. She wrote the question that had been forming in her mind. If Dad trusted Rowan so much, why forge my name? Elaine hesitated, then whispered the answer that shifted the entire room. "Because there's something in the trust he doesn't want you to find." That sentence froze Marissa's breath in her chest. "What doesn't he want me to find?" she wrote quickly. Elaine rubbed her hands together, staring at the floor as though the truth might be hidden in the carpet threads. Your father added something to the trust shortly before he died. Something private. Something he only told me about once. Marissa leaned forward, urgency sharpening her movements. Mom, tell me. Elaine exhaled a shaky breath. Marcus set aside a sealed collection of documents, personal letters, recordings, and a final written statement. He said they were for you. Only you. Marissa's pulse quickened. What kind of statement? Elaine shook her head. I never read it. He said it explained things. His fears, his doubts, decisions he regretted. She lifted her eyes, voice trembling. And one warning. He insisted that if anything happened to him, Rowan must never get access to that file. The air in the motel room seemed to tighten. Marissa wrote, "Where is it?" Elaine hesitated. It used to be kept in a safety deposit box downtown. But after Marcus died, Rowan insisted all estate-related materials be moved to the Lowell archives. Marissa felt a chill ripple through her body. So now he has it. Elaine clasped her hands. I don't know. He wasn't supposed to. I hid the key to the box in your father's study years ago. Rowan never knew where it was. Marissa's mind raced. The archives were locked, guarded, digitized, and controlled by Rowan. If he'd found the file, he would have destroyed it. If he hadn't, then the truth still existed. A truth Marcus believed could change everything. Marissa wrote one last question, her hand shaking from adrenaline. Why would Dad trust Rowan with everything, except the truth meant for me? Elaine closed her eyes, whispering, because that truth had the power to destroy him. Marissa sat back, absorbing the blow. Destroy him, she wrote. Elaine nodded, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. Your father loved you fiercely, but he wasn't perfect. He made choices, business, personal, financial, that he regretted deeply. That statement was his confession. Confession. The word stabbed through the air. Marissa's chest tightened as she imagined her father alone in his study, writing something he believed she needed to know only after he was gone. And Rowan, she wrote. What role did he play? Elaine hesitated. Marcus told me Rowan knew more about his mistakes than anyone else. Enough to ruin his reputation if he ever turned on him. Marissa froze. That changed everything. Rowan didn't just want control, he wanted protection. If the statement contained something incriminating, something devastating, Rowan's motive wasn't greed alone. It was survival. Elaine continued, voice cracking. Marcus feared that if you discovered the truth one day, you'd resent him. He asked me to guide you gently through it. But then, everything spiraled. Rowan took more control than he was supposed to. And I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. Marissa felt her throat tighten with betrayal so layered she couldn't separate the strands. Her mother's fear. Her father's secrecy. Her uncle's manipulation. She scribbled furiously. Whatever is in that statement, Rowan doesn't want me to read it. Which means I have to. Elaine nodded slowly. Yes, but be careful, Marissa. If Rowan forged your signature, planted surveillance, manipulated legal documents, he will not stop there. Marissa stood pacing. A storm still raged outside, waves slamming against the docks like warning drums. Tomorrow, she wrote, I meet with Derek. And then I find Dad's statement, before Rowan buries it forever. For the first time that night, determination eclipsed fear. Marissa woke before dawn, the motel room still cloaked in dim blue shadows. She slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake Elaine, who had finally fallen asleep after hours of anxiety. The storm outside had calmed to a gentle drizzle, though the air retained the heavy charge of unresolved tension. Marissa stood at the motel sink, splashing cold water on her face, examining her reflection. She looked older than she felt, sharper, more defined, like the betrayal had carved out new angles in her expression overnight. Today would change everything. She wrote a note for Elaine, meeting Derek. Stay inside. Keep curtains closed. She left it on the nightstand. Marissa stepped outside, the morning air biting against her skin. Derek had agreed to meet at a small cafe near the wharf, one with no security cameras and poor cell reception. Purposefully analog. She walked briskly along the dockside road, passing fishermen shouting over crates and gulls screeching overhead. The cafe came into view, its chipped sign swinging lightly in the wind. Inside, Derek sat in a corner booth, a hooded jacket hiding most of his face. When he saw Marissa, he stood, eyes widening with concern. "You look like hell," he said in a low voice. Marissa managed a thin, exhausted smile. "It's been a long 8 years. Isat." Derek leaned forward. "Your message said forged signatures. Family dispute." Marissa nodded. "More like family siege." She slid the folder Rowan had shown her from her bag, careful not to reveal the surveillance devices. Derek examined the papers, his analytical gaze scanning every curve of the ink. After a long moment he whispered, "This isn't just forged. This is professional-level forgery. And whoever did it knew your father's legal habits inside and out." Marissa felt her stomach twist. The conspiracy was deeper than she imagined. Derek continued examining the forged pages, angling each sheet toward the narrow beam of sunlight leaking through the cafe's blinds. "See this," he murmured, pointing to faint indentations near the signature line. "Pressure marks. Someone practiced this signature repeatedly before committing to the final version. Your uncle didn't do this. He hired someone." Marissa clenched her jaw. "Can we prove it?" Derek nodded slowly. "With enough time, yes. But you said you've got 72 hours. That's barely enough to build probable cause, let alone a case." Marissa swallowed her frustration. "There's something else. My father left a sealed statement for me, something hidden in the estate's archives. Rowan has been trying to erase my access to it." Derek's expression sharpened. "A sealed statement. That could be leverage. Maybe that's why Rowan forged the documents, to bury that file permanently." Marissa nodded. "I need that statement. It's the key to everything." Derek leaned back thinking. "The Lowell archives are locked behind biometric access, but I know an archivist who sometimes works the night shift there. If she trusts me, she might help us get inside." Marissa felt hope flicker for the first time. "What do we need to do?" Derek lowered his voice. "Move now, before Rowan realizes you're working with someone." Marissa stood, slipping the documents back into her bag. "Then let's go." Derek hesitated. "One more thing." He folded a small device into her hand. "Audio scrambler. If Rowan has people watching the estate, they'll try to intercept anything you record. This will distort your voice and location." Marissa tucked it into her pocket. "Thank you." Derek gave a tight nod. If Rowan has this much control already, then whatever's in that statement threatens him more than legal consequences. It threatens the foundation he's built his entire identity on. Marissa breathed deeply. "Then we dismantle that foundation." They left the cafe together, walking quickly toward Derek's car parked behind a row of weather-beaten boats. The drizzle had turned to fog, blanketing the docks in a dense gray sheet that muffled their footsteps. Inside the car, Derek drove cautiously through back routes, avoiding main roads. "The archivist's name is Lila Hensley," he said. "She's honest, loyal, to a fault, and she hates corruption. If I explain what's happening, she might help." Marissa stared out the window, tension coiling tighter with every passing minute. "Rowan will know I'm gone. He'll know I'm planning something." Derek nodded. "Then he'll make mistakes." They reached the city's historical district, lined with old brick buildings and iron lamps, where the Lowell archives occupied a restored courthouse. Derek parked in an alley. "We wait until Lila arrives," he said. 10 minutes later, a young woman with thick glasses and a messy bun approached the employee entrance. Derek jumped out. "Lila!" She startled, then blinked. "Derek! What are you?" He cut her off gently. "I need your help. Urgently." He introduced Marissa, explaining the forged documents, the sealed statement, Rowan's surveillance, and the danger involved. Lila's face paled. That's illegal on a level I can't ignore. Marissa stepped forward. My father wanted me to have his truth. Rowan wants to destroy it. Please, help us find it before he does. Lila hesitated only a moment before unlocking the side door. 5 minutes, she whispered. If anyone sees us, I'll be fired. Inside, the archive was cold and sterile, humming with automated filing systems and motion-triggered lights. Lila led them to a secured glass vault. Documents from your father's generation would be here, she said. Marissa's pulse hammered as Lila entered her credentials. With a soft click, the vault opened, and a single folder lay on the middle shelf, untouched. Derek whispered, "If this is what Rowan fears, you're about to find out why." Marissa reached for the folder with trembling hands. It was heavier than she expected, bound with a faded blue ribbon and marked only with her name in her father's handwriting. The sight of it struck her like a physical blow, so familiar, so full of memory that her eyes burned. She loosened the ribbon and opened the file. Inside lay a series of handwritten pages, a small audio recorder, and an envelope sealed with wax. She lifted the first letter, written in her father's precise script. My Marissa, if you are reading this, then time has done what I feared. It took me before I could tell you the truth myself. Her breath hitched. Derek watched quietly as she continued reading. The letter detailed her father's business partnerships, his miscalculations, and how Rowan exploited his vulnerability toward the end of his life. But then came the part that made Marissa's stomach drop. Rowan saved my life once, yes. But he also endangered it more times than I can ever write. He made decisions in my name. Decisions that cost people dearly. And in my weakest moments, I let him. I allowed him to protect me publicly while controlling me privately. Marissa bit her lip hard enough to taste blood. Her father had been both victim and collaborator. I asked him to temporarily oversee the trust because I feared you were too young to bear the burden of my failures. But that trust contains evidence of Rowan's extortion, threats, and crimes. He does not know this. And you must never underestimate him. Marissa looked to the sealed envelope. Her father's final words hit with devastating weight. If Rowan reads this before you do, he will destroy everything I left behind. Protect yourself. And forgive me. Marissa closed the folder slowly, feeling betrayal from every direction. Derek touched her shoulder gently. There's more in there. Marissa nodded and lifted the wax-sealed envelope. She cracked the seal carefully. Inside were copies of contracts, bank transfers, and handwritten notes suggesting Rowan had been siphoning funds long before Marissa turned 18, long before her father fell ill. One page, folded differently from the rest, caught her attention. She opened it to find a letter not from her father, but from Rowan. Marcus, if you ever betray our agreement, I will ruin you. Don't test me. The tone was cold, venomous, nothing like the charismatic uncle she once adored. Derek exhaled sharply. This is blackmail. Your father hid it to protect himself. And you. Marissa's jaw tightened. It's more than blackmail. My father lived under Rowan's thumb. But Rowan wants power, not truth. And now I have the one thing he needs to destroy. Derek glanced toward the hallway. We need to get these documents copied and hidden somewhere safe. Rowan can't know you found them. Marissa nodded, slipping everything back into the folder. As they stepped toward the exit, lights flickered overhead, followed by heavy footsteps echoing down the corridor. Lila whispered, "That's not security. They never patrol this early." Derek's eyes widened. He knows. Marissa felt adrenaline surge through her veins. We need to run. They dashed toward the back stairwell just as a long shadow stretched across the hallway behind them. Rowan, his expression thunderous, his presence suffocating. Marissa, he called, voice low and dangerous. Put the folder down. She didn't look back. Derek pulled open the emergency door, and they sprinted down the metal stairs into the cold morning air. Rowan's enraged shouts echoed behind them. The game had shifted. They no longer held suspicion. They held evidence. And Rowan knew his empire was seconds from collapse. They raced through the alley toward Derek's car, the early morning wind slicing against their faces. Derek fumbled with the keys. "Hurry!" Marissa shoved the folder beneath her coat. Just as they jumped inside, Rowan burst from the building, shouting her name. Derek slammed the accelerator, tires screeching as they sped into traffic. Marissa looked back to see Rowan on the curb, shaking with fury. Not fear anymore, but something darker, desperation. Derek drove fast, weaving through the streets. "Where do we go?" he asked breathlessly. Marissa inhaled deeply. "Somewhere public. Somewhere he can't act without witnesses." The public library sat at the edge of the city. Open early, full of cameras, a safe place to analyze the documents. Derek nodded. "Smart." They arrived minutes later. Inside the library's quiet atrium, they settled at a secluded computer station. Marissa laid out the documents, photographing each page. Derek whispered, "We'll upload every file to multiple cloud backups. If Rowan destroys one, 10 more survive." As they worked, Marissa's phone buzzed. She had forgotten to power it off. One message blinked on the screen from an unknown number. "You're making a mistake." She turned the phone over, her pulse racing. "He's already tracking me." Derek nodded. "Let him chase shadows. You're almost untouchable now." They created encrypted folders, emailed copies to trusted contacts, and printed duplicates. Marissa's movements grew steadier with each minute. The power dynamic was shifting tangibly. She no longer felt like prey. She felt like a strategist. When they finally finished, Derek exhaled with relief. "This is enough to bring him down." Marissa gathered the documents. "Not yet." Her voice was steady, cold. "Not until I confront him. Publicly. He tried to destroy my father's truth. Now I'll destroy his lies." Derek nodded. The reckoning had begun. By the time Marissa returned to the motel, Elaine was pacing furiously. "Where were you?" "I was terrified." Marissa held up the folder. "I found Dad's statement." Elaine froze. What did it say?" Marissa's expression softened with sadness. "Everything. His mistakes, his fear, Rowan's manipulation, and the evidence he kept hidden to protect us." Elaine sank onto the bed, covering her mouth. "Your father tried, he really tried." Marissa nodded. "But he trusted the wrong person too deeply." Elaine looked up, tears swelling. "And what now?" Marissa handed her mother a copy of the forged documents and Rowan's blackmail letter. "Now we end this." Elaine read the pages with trembling hands. When she finished, she whispered, "This will ruin him." Marissa met her eyes. "It should. He nearly ruined Dad. And he's been trying to erase me from my own legacy." Elaine reached for her daughter's hand. "Your father would be proud of how strong you've become." Marissa squeezed her mother's fingers gently. "This isn't strength. It's necessity." They packed quickly, preparing for the confrontation. Derek sent a message. "News outlets ready. Legal contacts ready. Just say the word." Marissa replied, "Not yet. Rowan deserves to hear it from me first." As they left the motel, Elaine hesitated. "Are you sure about this? Going to the estate, alone?" Marissa nodded. "He's too bold to hide. He'll want to face me." Elaine cupped Marissa's cheek. "Be careful." Marissa stepped into the crisp morning air with a clarity she had never known. Today, the truth would no longer hide in shadows. Today, Rowan Lowell would face consequences he never imagined possible. The Lowell estate stood ominously silent as Marissa approached its towering doors. The sky had cleared, but the air felt electrified, charged with the weight of long-buried secrets clawing their way to light. She stepped inside without knocking. Rowan was waiting in the foyer, posture stiff, eyes burning with tightly coiled rage. "You stole from my archives," he said, voice clipped. Marissa met his stare. I retrieved what belonged to me. Rowan gave a cold laugh. You think you understand what you found. Marcus made promises. Deals. Things you are too naive to comprehend. Marissa stepped closer, unafraid. My father made mistakes. But he didn't blackmail people. He didn't steal from the trust. You did. Rowan's jaw twitched. Your father was weak. The words sliced through the air. He depended on me for everything. He owed me his reputation, his life. Marissa pulled the blackmail letter from her coat and held it up. So he hid this. To protect himself. Rowan's face drained of color. You don't know what you're doing. Marissa's voice remained steady. I know exactly what I'm doing. I've backed up every document, every letter, every transfer. They're protected. Even if you stop me here, the truth will outlive you. Rowan stepped forward, fury twisting his features. You ungrateful child. I built this family's future. I protected our name. Marissa shook her head. You protected your power. And Dad realized that too late. Rowan's mask of control cracked. Give me the folder. Marissa met his anger with quiet steel. No silence thickened between them. Finally Rowan spoke, voice trembling with desperation. You're going to destroy everything. Marissa replied, No. You destroyed everything. I'm just revealing it. Rowan lunged forward abruptly, but Marissa stepped back, pulling out the audio scrambler Derek had given her. She clicked it on, and a sharp buzzing echoed through the foyer, loud enough to jolt Rowan to a halt. What is that? He demanded. Marissa lifted it calmly. The end of your silence. She activated the recorder, projecting her voice clearly. Rowan Lowell just attempted to seize documents proving criminal activity involving the Lowell Trust. Rowan's eyes widened. Turn that off. She continued louder now. He accessed my inheritance unlawfully, forged my signature, and blackmailed my father for years. I am submitting all evidence to legal authorities and the press. Rowan lunged again, this time not for the folder but for the recorder. But Marissa dodged him, stepping toward the center of the foyer where the acoustics magnified her voice. Rowan roared. You don't understand the consequences. Marissa steadied her breath. I understand them better than you think. Rowan froze, breathing hard, his facade collapsing under the weight of panic. If this goes public, the board will exile me. My investments will collapse. My alliances. They'll abandon you, Marissa finished. Just like you abandoned your integrity. Rowan's fury morphed into something more fragile, fear. Marissa, please. The sudden plea shook her. This was a man who had manipulated, threatened, and stolen without remorse. You're not sorry, she whispered. You're scared. Rowan dropped to the nearest chair, burying his face in his hands. You don't know what I've done to keep this family stable. Marissa's voice softened but did not waver. Control built on lies isn't stability. It's a ticking bomb. Rowan looked up, eyes wet with rage and humiliation. If you release this, you destroy me. Marissa held his gaze. No, you destroyed yourself. The confrontation ended not with a scream, but with a sigh, a long, defeated exhale from Rowan as he realized he had no power left to wield. Marissa stepped back, keeping her voice controlled. Legal teams will arrive within the hour. The press will receive copies shortly after. Rowan slumped further. Marissa, we can negotiate. She shook her head. You forged my name. You violated my father's trust. You spied on me and Mom. There's no negotiation left. Rowan rose slowly, his face hollow. Marcus needed me. You don't understand what he asked me to carry. Marissa felt a flicker of pity, but it evaporated as she remembered the years of manipulation. Maybe Dad relied on you, she said softly. But you used that reliance to build a cage around him. And then you tried to build one around me. Rowan staggered backward as if struck. I was loyal. No, Marissa replied. You were possessive. The front doors opened sharply. Elaine entered, followed by Derek and 2 legal representatives. Rowan's eyes widened. "You brought them here." Marissa nodded. "To witness everything." One attorney stepped forward. "Mr. Lowell, you are hereby removed from all positions within the Lowell Trust pending investigation. You are advised not to leave the state." Rowan's mouth opened, but no words emerged. Elaine met Marissa's gaze. Fearful, proud, relieved all at once. "It's over," she whispered. Marissa shook her head gently. "Not over. Just corrected." Rowan was escorted to another room, visibly shaken. As the house filled with the quiet hum of legal proceedings, Marissa finally exhaled. The storm inside her chest loosened its grip. Her father's truth was safe. Rowan's lies were unraveling. And for the first time in years, the future belonged to her, not as an inheritance but as a choice. Hours later, the estate felt different, lighter, as though it had been holding its breath for years. Marissa stood alone in her father's study, the sunlight painting warm streaks across the room. She placed the sealed folder on the desk and whispered, "I found it, Dad." Her throat tightened, but she let the emotion come. Derek entered quietly. "They're taking Rowan in for questioning now. The evidence you found. It's enough to convict him." Marissa nodded, still staring at her father's handwriting. "He won't control us anymore." Derek offered a small smile. "You did something most people never have the courage to do. You confronted the person who betrayed you deepest, and you won." Marissa closed the folder gently. "I didn't win," she said softly. "I reclaimed what was stolen." Elaine appeared at the doorway, her expression filled with fragile hope. "What will you do now?" Marissa looked around the study, a room once filled with secrets, now finally allowing truth to breathe. "I'll rebuild the trust," she said. "But differently. Transparently. Honestly. No more shadows." Elaine stepped forward and hugged her tightly. "Your father would be proud." Marissa let the warmth of the moment settle in her chest. She felt the scars of betrayal, yes, but also the strength that rose from them. As she left the study, she paused at the doorway and looked back one last time. Families were complicated, fragile, prone to fractures, but they were also capable of healing when truth replaced silence. Outside, the sky over Blackridge Bay had cleared entirely. The storm had passed. Marissa walked toward the sunlight, carrying not the weight of her family's past, but the promise of its future. And she knew the final lesson by heart: trust is fragile, but truth is unstoppable.